Everyone's hating on Debbie Birx, everyone. And it might be because of the fact that she refused to hold Donald Trump accountable as he lied to the American people over and over and over again while he was president during this pandemic. And so why is Deborah Birx coming up now? Well, it's because she recently had an interview that appeared to try to kind of rehabilitate her image. This is what she said on the recent interview with CBS's Face the Nation.
Do you think President Trump appreciated the gravity of the health crisis you were describing?
I think the president appreciated the gravity in March. It took a while after I arrived in the White House to remove all of the ancillary data that was coming in. I mean, there was parallel data streams coming into the White House that were not transparently utilized. And I needed to stop that. Where people
you mean outside advisors?
Outside advisors coming to inside advisors, and to this day, I mean, until the day I left, I'm convinced there were parallel data streams because
disinformation.
I saw the president presenting graphs that I never made. So I know that someone out there or someone inside was creating a parallel set of data and graphics that were shown to the president. I don't know to this day who, but I know what I sent up, and I know that what was in his hands was different from that.
So it might have been great for the American people to know about that in real time, but I guess it's great to find out about it now. Remember, Dr. Birx was asked repeatedly whether Donald Trump was being honest with the American people, whether there was misinformation being spread through those disastrous press conferences that he would hold, in the first few months of the pandemic. And time again, we saw Dr. Birx carry water for Trump and allege that he took the scientific data very seriously. And CNN's Brianna Keilar seemed pretty livid about that, and we'll go to her video in just a minute. But Aida, I want to hear from you first.
You know what? I've been trying to contain my rage and my anger because I'm working on some new stuff in terms of dealing with my frustration. I am so tired of the people that enabled Trump, stood around him and watched him recklessly, give out information that was inaccurate. 400,000 plus people are gone. And you don't get to just say, my bad. Like, that's just not okay. You enabled him, you sat around, now you want to distance yourself because you saw what foolishness came about on the 6th, and now nobody wants to be a part of, well, not nobody's quite, some people are still sticking with the program, but just to try to alienate yourself from it now. When we watched you publicly live out these lies. And I just think it's disrespectful. And you know what it is this privilege. Is these people are in this bracket, this financial bracket, where they are exempt from the realities that coronavirus has rained down on people who don't have the privileges that they do. They stand in line first for the vaccine. They have access to the information. They got the treatments because they were around Donald Trump when Donald Trump was infected with the coronavirus. So now you get to just say, I didn't know that there were you knew exactly what was going on. You enabled it, you participated in it, you faced the American people and you told them lies. And now you want to back away from it. And mind you, with a horrible scarf on while you do it. I can't stand this.
She loves the scarves. They're big, beautiful scarves. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. But this is not to excuse Dr. Birx in any way. But it is to really highlight something that I personally was very naive about. People are unwilling to stand up to power, especially when their livelihood is on the line, when their career is on the line. Now, Dr. Birx is retired now, so she was at the home stretch. And to be quite honest with you, if she had retired months earlier, I'm sure her life would be just as lovely. Yes. But she chose to stand by Donald Trump and even lied to the American people about how he takes the scientific data seriously when she knew that wasn't the case. And she's not the only one, guys. That's the thing. Now, I think Fauci did a decent job in I mean, he definitely had a combative relationship with Trump. There's no question. He and his family have dealt with death threats and all sorts of awful things that come along with ever speaking against Trump or sharing a conflicting message to his lies, right? But he found a way through the various television interviews he did and also through the coronavirus briefings to get relevant, important information to the American people. I didn't see the same effort from Birx, which was frustrating. And then when you kind of open this conversation up to the government in general, I mean, you have one fake strongman Republican after the next cowering in Trump's presence. They're all so afraid of him. I mean, Senator Lindsey Graham is like running around trying to find lawyers who will represent Trump in the impeachment trial. Pathetic. These are pathetic people. It's really hard to find individuals who are strong enough to speak truth to power. Unfortunately, we don't have many of them in Congress, especially in the Republican Party. Anyway, I do want to go to Breonna Keeler really quick because she had a lengthy segment on this on her show, and she raises some concerns of her own.
Reputation rejuvenation are quite in vogue right now in the wake of President Trump's exit from the White House. And that includes the curious case of Dr. Deborah Birx. Birx began the pandemic buttering up President Trump, even as he denied science. So while Birx actually had a very large platform, she said early on that Trump was, quote, attentive to the literature and the data. But now she says,
I saw the president presenting graphs that I never made.
Whatever reason Dr. Birx had for going along with misinformation, failing to forcefully discredit medical advice that could kill people, only she really knows. Her explanations are weak. They are woefully insufficient. They are an insult after more than 400,000 Americans have died. And to scientists, Birx is a cautionary tale about letting politics and power warp science until it is no longer science. That a doctor can spend 40 years building a reputation that garners respect, being a champion of science and serving others. But if they don't stand up for science when it counts, when lives are on the line, their reputation can be wiped away. All it takes is a little bleach, and in her case, a small ray of sunlight.
I'm gonna say something that might be controversial to some. I don't care. I like Breonna Keeler. I like her a lot. I think that maybe she has political views that I disagree with. I don't know. But in terms of her style on CNN, she's one of my favorites. She has great follow-up questions for politicians. She's super salty when it's appropriate. She's got a good heart. I don't know. I really like Breonna Keeler. That's just me. So I give her credit for that segment. And also she's done really great reporting on coronavirus and has, gone to pretty extreme lengths to share people's personal stories. I'm not talking about people who have celebrity or, some, public figure position, just ordinary people who have really dealt with the significant, devastating impact of this pandemic. And I think those are the stories that should be uplifted and shared with the public. Anyway, Aida.
I like her too, so I appreciate you saying that, and I think that it's important for us to be able to say this without feeling like we're going to be condemned for it, because there are, you know what I mean? There are people across the place who actually have good intentions, and all of us can be misguided at some point and have conflicting views, but you know who the good eggs are, and I think it's important to call them out when you see it. What I was gonna say is, there are people who are going to say that Dr. Birx is a woman and probably was intimidated by Donald Trump. We know Donald Trump is a sexist. He had very abusive language when it comes to talking about women, and I understand that. But I do agree, when you have an opportunity to walk away from a situation when you're not being held captive, what a beautiful thing to teeter between, privilege and victimhood, which is something that a lot of people are not afforded. And I just think that in this moment, if you really are concerned about the American people, we lost a lot of lives. And people like to minimize that by saying, well, people are dying of all other diseases. And these people had the information to really empower people to react to this virus in a way that would keep us safe and keep it from spreading to the degree that it has spread. And they chose not to because they chose dollars over human beings. And anybody who is complicit in that is guilty, and they need to be held accountable for that, whether they are man or woman, because there are a lot of women who died in that 400,000 number, and nobody is speaking their names.
Yeah, and when you look at the demographics that are harmed the most by this pandemic, the most number of deaths, I mean, it's Black and Latino communities in California, Southern California specifically. The dominant demographic in terms of contracting the virus and dying from the virus is the Latino community. And socioeconomic status, of course, has a lot to do with it. And access to the hospitals, I mean, that has a lot to do with it. Whether there are underfunded public hospitals in the area, that has a lot to do with it. Right now, by the way, there's a discussion about sending kids back to school, which I think is incredibly important. And the data indicates that community spread within schools is incredibly low. However, we can't treat each public school as if they're all on equal footing. We know that's not the case. And so are some of these schools performing better than others because they have the appropriate resources to buy the PPE and the products necessary, hand sanitizer, masks, whatever it is, to keep the kids safe? And if that's the case in some schools, we got to ensure that those same resources are available to other schools that have been underfunded compared to some of these public schools in wealthier communities. So I bring that up as an example of how there's really been this blanketed approach in some ways in regard to opening businesses up, sending kids back to school, doing certain things as if everyone in this country is on an equal footing and we're living in similar circumstances. We're not. And so the approach does need to cater to certain communities. We're seeing a little bit of that with Joe Biden and his efforts to send mobile units to rural areas and elderly homes in order to ensure that people who aren't mobile get access to the vaccine and the treatment that they're gonna need. But overall, I mean, especially during the Trump administration, there was a decentralized approach, every state for themselves. And then when you look at how states have handled things, in a lot of cases, there's just a generalized approach that completely glosses over the inequalities that we have built into this system, So that's a long way of saying I agree with you, Aida.
No, but it was a lot of people who were negligent when it came to the people because they were in Trump's good graces. And then the governors that he had a problem with, they were punished. And then we saw this Hunger Games play out with the people. And of course, the people at the bottom pay the highest price. And I feel like we have to be real about that, and we have to be honest about the people who are suffering and are still suffering right now because of this pandemic. It is not gone because Donald Trump is gone. It is not gone because they opened back restaurants in California or in other states. We are still dealing with a pandemic that is. It is running amok on the people, and people are dying to this day. Our medical people are struggling, and we just because it's not in the news cycle and we're not trending, we're not talking about the stories. We have to keep talking about this because it is still a very big problem in this country.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.